Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of It Takes Two. I am your host Ruby Soa, and in this program we try and delve into issues related to marital issues, family and those who we love the most. I'm really excited to have two special guests with us today. To my left we have Miss Jafar, who was our resident alim, who will be giving us an Islamic perspective on the questions, and Mr. Ali Reza, who will be giving us a psychological perspective on the questions. Welcome, a warm welcome to you both, and thank you for being here. If we could jump into the first letter, I'd really appreciate it. And it reads, Dear It Takes Two, I feel like my wife shows favoritism towards my daughter and not my son, who is the eldest and has the least issues. I have tried to talk about this, but it doesn't work, and I secretly feel she generally doesn't care for my son. Is this even possible for a mother not to love all her children in the same way? And I think I'll start with yourself. An Islamic perspective, we have so many examples in biblical stories and Muslim stories that often there is one parent who favors a particular child who just happens to be a prophet or something. Is this normal? What does Islam say about favoritism, being the firstborn? What does it say?
Okay, first of all, I think before I answer the question, remember we're only getting the husband's perspective. So it's what he's seeing, and that may not be correct.
Accurate. Yeah,
exactly. She may be overcompensating because she may feel that he's favouring the son, so therefore she feels that she needs to favour the daughter. So again, we're looking at only his perspective. I think as human beings, you may have a favourite, but obviously then you're not supposed to make it obvious. That, I mean, as a mother, you love all your children. That is, a sort of an innate love that God has put into a mother for all her children. But you may connect more to one. The personalities may match such, or maybe the other child, one of the children is so like you that there's sort of friction there as well. So there's lots of different reasons. The firstborn is always special to a mother because that's the first child. The last one is usually always special as well because you're not going to have any more. You may have the girl or the mummy's boy or whatever. So there may be favorites there, but you're not supposed to make it obvious, and you're supposed to treat them all equally.
Well, Islamically, why do we then have some stories or examples of known people who have favoured? So if we look at, say, for example, Surah Yusuf, and the father who had a soft spot for all his children, but Yusuf and the youngest one. Why is it shown in there?
First of all, you're looking at it again from the perspective of the brothers. So they felt that he favoured them. So that again, not necessarily did he. And also, the mother of Prophet Yusuf and Binyamin had passed away.
Right.
So again, maybe Prophet Yusuf thought because they didn't have their biological mother, he needed to compensate for that as well. But again, it's a perspective that you take. My children are constantly telling me I favour one over the other. Constantly. Whenever you take the side of one because you're trying to be fair, the others will feel that you're favouring them. So, it's always that person's perspective.
I'm going to bring Mr. Ali Reza into this. Now, what is your feeling towards this? Let's just go on the assumption that the mother is favouring somebody, one child over the other. What would be the possible reasons for this? And is this normal? Or is it normally a normal occurrence in, say, males with their children as opposed to females? What would you say?
Well, I would agree with what the sister has said. There are many reasons that can actually have an impact. Therefore, the father is definitely seeing things through his perspective. And no, it is not normal to have favoritism. Innately speaking, if you like, there shouldn't be any difference. Affection is affection, love is love, full stop. and as a mother, as a father. What can happen after birth and throughout the upbringing is that one person can, for example, become rude through societal learning, through other sources, can become spoiled by someone else within the family, within the extended family. There are many reasons that the behavior of the child can change. Therefore, the mother will say, you know, in order to try and treat him in a way so that he can learn, then I'm going to be less attentive to him. So that can be another reason.
Mm-hmm.
There can be plenty of reasons that this can be corrected anyway. The father has said that I have tried to speak to the mother in order to correct this, but it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
But what we haven't heard in this letter at all is that what is the mother's perspective, what are the mother's reasons. Really what the father should do in this case is to listen to the mother very carefully, without any form of judgment whatsoever, without any form of taking side in any form or shape.
Mm-hmm.
And when he does get a response and a reply, just think about it. Do
Right.
not step in, do not reply, do not come up with an action plan there and then. So it's, at the end of the day, you know, if God forbid anything, you know, if the child falls down in the playground, for example, that mother's going to be torn to pieces. Okay, she
We would
wants to
hope so.
no, it would be, definitely, make no doubt about it. You know, there is definitely one or number of reasons why she has become less attentive. It might have been done over the years, might have been over the months. That might still, the mother might have that negative feeling, but is nothing in depth.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely is superficial, definitely it can be resolved, and therefore the action plan would be for the father, step one, listen to the mother very carefully, think about it very carefully, empathize with the mother and say, why don't we try and solve this problem together?
Okay. Now, if this question was brought to yourself from an Islamic perspective, because we always like to bring in, you know, our Islamic known people, etc., into examples, what would you advise? Can you think of any situations in Quran or Hadith or narrated stories where this has occurred, or when there's been?
Nothing springs to mind, but what I'm thinking about is, as a mother, I mean, the letter says that the son doesn't have issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that means that the daughter does. And again, it's an assumption that I'm making because of the fact that he had clearly said that the son doesn't have issues.
Does mention that.
Yeah. So maybe the mother's picked up on that, and that's why she's connecting more to the daughter to try to guide her through her issues.
Do you think this could be a cultural phenomenon? Because, you know, in certain parts, I don't know, then I would say maybe, you know, there's a lot of emphasis in some cultures that if there's a son and he's the firstborn, you know, whoop-de-doo. But what do you think is going on here? Do you think it's just the fact that she may have more in common with the daughter, or?
Maybe she's seeing issues that the daughter's going through, which maybe she went through as a youngster, and maybe that's why she's thinking, you know what, I don't want her to make the same mistakes. So if I'm there and I'm able to talk to her and I'm able to guide her, then she won't make the same mistake. She may make other mistakes.
Proactive in the daughter's.
But then at the same time, they're assuming that the son doesn't have issues. Sometimes just because they're not showing it doesn't mean that there aren't.
Exactly.
It may be that he's being secretive about something. Maybe he feels if he's not getting it, the fact that he's not getting enough attention, then he doesn't feel the need to talk about his issues at home because he doesn't feel like anyone's going to listen. You know, there's so much that's going on which you really can't tell.
Hypothesize on
exactly.
These things. Miss Ali Reza, I just wanted to put to you, could it possibly, and we're really being broad and hypothesizing here, it might not actually be the case, but, you know, with the little chunk of what she's given us, we're just going to assume. Could it be a case, because a lot of the time we naturally think that, you know, when we have our firstborn, it's wonderful, we're naturally going to become mothers, you know, could it be a case that she simply didn't bond with the child? Could that be a case?
It might be the case that there must be a slightly less bonding in certain situations. I mean, for example, my own mother clearly, openly mentioned that I love your elder brother more than anyone else.
Wow.
However,
lots of counselling needed.
No. However, so I know where the brother's coming from. At the same time, she drowned us in love so much we couldn't see it. We couldn't see whether that extra love whether it's there or not. We were completely drowned with love of her. May God bless her.
And
soul.
what was her excuse for that? Just being because
Being
the first
son,
born?
being the first son, full stop. You know,
There
being
you
the first
go.
son, full stop. That's all.
But you didn't feel it. You can honestly feel that you didn't, because she was loving. Because this mother could be loving, but there's little differences. So maybe the daughter can get away with a little bit more than the son, and maybe she thinks she has to be stricter for the son because of, you know, society's pressures, maybe, and that could come across
Or
as
stricter on the daughter, and that's why she's giving her more attention, because she's preparing her for marriage, and this concept of having to give.
yeah.
I think it's very important that you know, for this brother to actually maybe in a live show to call in, because we don't know the ages, we don't know, you know, what kind of favoritism, we don't know what the mother's saying about, you know, why she's doing this. So there's really a catalogue of stuff
And also
that maybe you can email or send a letter, you know, with a lot of more
Definitely.
details. That
And
would be
also it
helpful.
might actually help to talk to the son and find out his perspective. 'Cause
Absolutely.
he may actually not
Absolutely,
think that
yeah.
his mother's being, you know, favouring one above the other. Maybe this is a perspective that he's seeing.
And can we just look at what negative aspects could this do? Because maybe if she is watching, she might need that reality check, that what implications this has of her behaviour. For a boy, for the psychology of a male child, what could this do, the lack of attachment?
Well, if that's
or-
really happening, you know, he
Let's
will,
just
depending on
specific.
the age again, but if this kind of detachment or lack of attention is happening at an early age, it will definitely have a big impact, because as what we are inherently geared to receive love from, you know, the genes, if you like, of the womb of the mother, right to the moment that we die. It's just the shape and form of it changes. You know, it's from the mother, then the father, then the, you know, the siblings, the society, grandparents. Then obviously as we grow older, we learn to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore the spirituality becomes in question. And so that model of love and that engine for loving, to receiving and to giving is always there.
Do you feel that this mother, again, we're presuming, we're making her look really bad, do you think she's living up to her Islamic female role in this instant? And if she's not, what could she change?
I think if she's making it obvious that she loves one child over the other, then no, I don't think she is, because I think it's important to make all the children feel loved. And the fact that God actually innately puts that mercy into a mother. You know, we have in Hadith Qudsi that God puts mercy into a mother's heart for her children, and affection in the father's heart for his children. So that mercy, and you know, it's such a huge thing that the mother would actually sacrifice her own self for her children, and that should be for all the children. It shouldn't be one above the other. But again, I think as a mother, you tend to spend time and energy on the children as and when you see that they need it. So it may just be a phase that this girl is going through where she feels that her time, energy is needed for her daughter. And again, I think, you know, there are so many things that the father could do rather than actually, if he's tried talking to her and it's not working, maybe he could actually make sure that they have family time together. Maybe he could actually take the daughter out on the guys that, you know what, I don't feel like I'm bonding with my daughter, so I'm going to take her out and leave the son with the mother, giving them time to bond. So, you know, it could be, rather than saying you're not bonding with your son, I can take it and say, well, maybe I'm not bonding with my daughter, so let me take her out, let me spend some time with her, if you're okay, you know, and then you can spend some time with the son.
Do you think it might be harmful for the husband to say, look, I mean, how would most females likely take it if the husband said, I feel that you're not being as affectionate to the son? I mean, is it bound to make things worse, or how would he go about that? How would he express himself on such a delicate subject?
It depends how it's said, whether you use IQ logic or EQ logic. If you're using emotional tone, you know, without much negativity, you should be able to get the message across. But obviously, if you come in on a critical tone, and you know, there's many ways that you can, you know, express one simple sentence. If he's gentle about it, delicate about it, and not critical, and I think you should be able to bring the message home. Earlier on you mentioned what could the mother do, what the effect would be on her. I think the effect is that, bearing in mind at all times we need to remind ourselves constantly that we hold ourselves responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what salat is about, constantly. Salat is just a window of prayer. At the same time, we have to constantly, daily remind ourselves, therefore this is a reality check of, am I being just to myself and to my daughter and to my son and husband? So if I'm being just, if I'm being fair or not. Now, it's no good for us to just check ourselves. An objective opinion coming from the husband or an outsider, if you like, it would really help.
What, why do you think, let's just say she isn't all these things, let's just change it. Why do you think, and how do you think the husband has come to this conclusion? Because supposing she's doing the best she can, but as you said, she's giving more attention to the daughter because maybe preparing her for marriage. Why do you think the husband has picked up that she possibly favours the daughter? Because that's quite a bold statement, even if it wasn't correct. Why do you think that would happen?
I think maybe if he's noticing the fact that she's spending a lot more time with the daughter than she does with her son. Maybe the son has actually made some comments, and again he's picked up on those. Maybe it's his own issues and he's projecting them onto her, so maybe he feels like he's not got a relationship with both his children. It could be that as well. And he's just being very sensitive with it.
Well, I'm going to move on to letter 2. I hope we've given you some pointers on what you can do there, inshallah. But it would be really nice if you wrote back and told us how things changed, or even called on a live show. And inshallah, we'll invite you both back to possibly see where this letter goes. So letter 2 reads as follows. Dear ItTakes2, I'm a woman in my late 20s and I've been interested in marrying a brother for a few years now. My parents refuse to let me marry him as he comes from a single parent home and they fear that he will follow in the footsteps of his father. I understand that family play a big role in marriage, but is this a legitimate concern that needs to be taken into consideration? I'll put that back to you, mashallah. Now,
okay, there's a few things here from an Islamic perspective. First of all, if the girl is a virgin, still living at home, still being financially supported by her father, then she does need the father's permission. If she says she's in her late 20s, so I assume she may be someone who is financially secure, where she's probably got a job, and even then, it is still obviously recommended to have your parents' permission and their actual blessing in the marriage as well. Marriage isn't easy. You need your parents' du'as as well as everything else. She says it's been going on for a few years.
Yes. As in she's been probably in some type of relationship with this brother for a few years.
So it'd be interesting to know actually if they've had a mutar recited, because again, if she is a virgin, she'd need her father's permission for that as well. Or, you know, it's you have to be very careful that you don't go down the haram route by meeting in secrecy because you feel your parents aren't going to accept it.
Right.
What I would suggest a grown-up thing to do would be to actually tell her parents that she's very committed to this boy. She feels that he's the sort of person she wants to get married to, be the father of her children, and she's willing to wait for them to do their research, ask about him, until they're happy she's not going to make a move. So again, it's showing, look, I've decided this, but I want your blessing. You know, it's not something that I'm going to do without your blessing, but at the same time, I'm not going to look elsewhere. Now, as she's getting older, the parents obviously want her to get married. So they're going to look at the fact that, is it a whim or is it something that, you know, she's actually quite set on? If she's refusing to meet any other suitors, but yet she's saying, you know what, I'm not going to do this till you're happy, then maybe they might actually do the research and find out that he's a decent boy. And the fact that, yes, family is important, but I think from a genes perspective, but I don't believe that if you come from a family that's religious, you're necessarily going to be religious. If you come from a family that's broken, you're going to, have a broken family. It doesn't work like that. It could work the other way, where you actually learn how not to do things. So if he's been through a divorce, he may be thinking, I don't want to put my children through that. So I'm going to make sure my marriage works. And I'm not going to make the same mistakes that my parents did. It could go either way.
I'm going to put this question to you, brother. Okay, do you sometimes feel, quite honestly, that parents use their children to often treat them as a hostage situation? For example, she's invested time into this relationship. Psychologically, what is the damage of parents often, playing Russian roulette with their children's feelings in this situation? Is there any, for example?
I think the parents' concern about the daughter, any parent's concern for their children, is very genuine. But at the same time, they need to be very careful, because the fact that this brother is coming from a single parent on its own merit is not a good enough reason at all. There are plenty of people who are not coming from single parents, and they end up getting divorced. So the key thing is how well this brother's been brought up, and the other key thing is that with the sister in question, she needs to ask herself that, am I really using my parents' rational experience of 30, 20, whatever odd years that they've got older than her, in order to be able to make a right decision? As the sister said, marriage is very concerned with a lot of factors involved, but is a very blessed process if we go about it the right way. The key to it, and whether this brother is pious enough or not, the key to it is to see whether he's emotionally stable, whether he's not erratic, whether he's not neurotic, whether he's...
At 20, we were all meant to realise those.
Within reason to the age, you can be 40 and become like that. Is he flexible? Is he rational? When you put a question to him, is he affectionate enough? Does he pray? Does he love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Does he respect the fact that he's with this sister, that he's an amanat, is an amanat from God?
But what if he is all those things? And with parents, sometimes we can really project what we want for our children rather than what they want for themselves.
Well, this is a very common process. But this sister can actually begin to challenge them. It will take a bit of time, but be patient. It can happen for parents to accept us as grown-up adults. But the question is, if the parents realise you are being rational, obviously because you're 20, you've got every right, to be emotional about things within reason, and you've got every right to feel in love, because this is what, at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in our brains, to have the capability to be able to love. So loving is not a problem. Loving, as the sister said, in the right context, in the right context for the right person, is perfect. The question is, you will pay a heavy price if this is entirely an emotional process without the parental and religious guidance. And there's plenty of data to show that if it's a premature love, you will pay the price later on.
I'm going to challenge you on this one. The brother mentioned love. Now, being a girl, a lot of the time there's a little bit more pressure on us than there are for males, especially when it comes to pleasing family. So this issue of love, do you think that's really going to work if she's going to say, but Mom, I love him?
If I was the mother, no, because I don't believe love exists.
You see?
No, because I don't believe love exists before marriage. I think love is something that God puts into the marriage, because there's a Quranic verse where God himself says that he puts love and mercy into the marriage. And I think those are the gifts that God gives us in our marriage. So I think true love comes from Allah. I think what we feel towards each other is infatuation, lust, desire, maybe some sort of connection.
But that's what women do. We look at the potential.
Yes, the potential may be there, and I think that I agree that when the brother said love, he was looking. It's the potential of whether this person can take care of me. Do I want him to be the father of my children? If she can come into this from not an emotional perspective, but from a perspective where she's actually thought about it and is showing her parents that she's thought about it. So, for example, if she tells her parents that there is a hadith from the Holy Prophet that says if a proposal comes to you and the boy has akhlaq and he has religion, then you should consider it. Now, if she says to her parents, this boy has akhlaq and he has religion, so we need to consider it. That's the hadith of the Holy Prophet. You can't sit there and say, no, I'm not going to. You know, and also, you know, if she says to him, look, if she says to them, I've done the research, I've asked his friends, I've found out about him, I'm not just sitting there thinking, oh my God, he's amazing and that's it. I'm actually, you know, and I'm asking you to do the same. Ask whoever you need to. And the beauty of Islam is that you're told that you're supposed to hide other people's faults, except when someone comes and asks you about marriage. At that moment, you have to be truthful. You know, you can't sit there and hide specific...
But let's face it, let's just put all our dirty laundry out there for everyone to see. When somebody comes and asks for someone's hand in marriage, you know that they're going to ask the butcher, who is this boy, the baker, the candlestick maker, and everything else. And what you'll probably hear is, and what the parents are concerned of, is that it says in this letter that the parents refuse to let the girl marry him as he comes from a single parent home, and they fear he will follow in his father's footsteps. So obviously something, we're presuming the father's left the home or did something a little bit.
Agreed, but again, that doesn't mean that that's the son's fault. He's not done anything, and he's not, you know, again, that may actually make you want to be a better father and ensure that you don't do that.
But realistically, in the community, it's not just about the person. It's how do we tackle that? It's about almost like the sins of the parent become the child's sins.
But again, if she can bring it back to religion and say, look, the Holy Prophet didn't say, you know, if they come from a one-parent family, you can't marry them. It's akhlaq and religion. If he has akhlaq and religion, then you know for a fact that your daughter is going to be okay in that marriage. Even if the marriage does not work for whatever reason, he will be just because he has akhlaq and he has religion.
Okay.
But what we tend to do is, the problem is, as parents, we think our children are so perfect that we want the perfect partner for them. First of all, there's no one that's perfect, except the Holy Prophet.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think when we look at things, we're looking at material things. So we're looking at what job he does. We're looking at, you know, how much money he earns. We're looking at what education he has. Yes, those things are important, but they shouldn't come above akhlaq and religion.
So glad you ended the programme on that note, and I'm so glad for that practical step she gave to the sister to empower her to have some patience. Really important for our youth. I'm afraid we've come to the end of this segment. I do hope you will join us on the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.